Now he's dead.
And now he's dead, yeah.
Is it true, Ian, that it's now like a breach of federal law if you try and go near the initial site of the oil spill, and that the military patrol it and media aren't allowed in?
Exactly. I mean, this has been going for some time. I mean, basically, the whole of the Gulf Coast has effectively been under sort of martial law, to all intents and purposes, since the middle of May. And there's also been an evacuation plan. I mean, I have it. I put out a newsletter in I think the second or third week of June, because I had got some pretty detailed information from one of my oilfield contacts in the Gulf area.
Yeah.
That the US military were putting together evacuation plans for 40 million people, i.e. people living effectively within 50 miles or so of the Gulf Coast and the whole of Florida. Because the concern at the time, and maybe for some people still there, that if the well blows, it's going to create such a phenomenal tsunami.
Yeah.
That effectively it's going to wash right over Florida. So, the US administration will do one of two things. They'll either just keep quiet and let it happen, or they'll start evacuating the people, and then we'll start to see the FEMA camps, of course, come into their own.
That's it.
But the real concern, from a planetary basis, is very much the Gulf Stream. Both the seaborne stream and the airborne stream, because the Gulf of Mexico is the source for a lot of the precipitation. So we've already got reports coming in from all over the US of crop damage. Now, we're getting reports of crop damage from as far north as Minnesota. But we're getting detailed reports of crop damage from the Carolinas, from Georgia, from Wyoming, up on the eastern side of the Rockies. And this unexplained crop damage is affecting both organic crops and non-organic crops that have pesticides and herbicides sprayed on them. We'll call it a hunch, but the common denominator is probably the correct set. Yeah. And now what we've got is this shit is being sucked up into the upper atmosphere. And, one of the things that I'm going to be focusing on over the coming weeks and months is trying to raise the awareness of the potential for crop damage in Western Europe next year. I think we're going to see some other effects as well. I think we're going to start seeing a rapid increase in birth defects in and around the Gulf Coast area. We know that the physical symptoms of contact with Corexit, whether that's physical contact or just breathing in the oil Corexit mix, the physical symptoms are lesions on the skin, but more importantly and more worryingly, it attacks the red blood cells and actually attacks the organs, and then causes you to the first symptom that you see of that external symptom is that you start bleeding from the butt.
Not nice.
So, yeah, I mean, extremely unpleasant. And I mean, we are starting to get reports of people that were employed to do the cleanup who were told not to wear the masks because it didn't look good to any photographer who happened to slip through the cordon. And are now reporting sick, and these are the symptoms that are being experienced. And my concern is that, albeit perhaps diluted, although the local reports are suggesting that Corexit is still being sprayed in the Gulf, even now, at night. And the concern is, of course, that this stuff is fueling the Gulf Stream.
Yeah. And
we're going to start seeing the effects of this, probably next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something we've got to keep our eyes on. I mean, there's enough people out there doing enough work, I think, to make sure that the truth does stay at the forefront. It's not something that it's like all the new bills that they're trying to push through in America as well. I think the world now is on the lookout, and the researchers are on top of it. Our game, I think, is still pretty good at the minute. I don't think we'll see anything slip through the net. We just seem to be on top of it. I don't know whether I touch.
Well, I think there's enough people looking at it. You're right, and I mean, what we need to do is obviously we need to get more and more people looking at it.
Yeah.
We need to create that critical mass. Where basically the people are effectively directing their governments, as opposed to the governments directing their people. someone once said it's governments that should be afraid of people, not the other way around.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, we do need people to be extremely vigilant, and we need people to share research because, I'm obviously synthesizing information that I'm getting from all over because I'm not in the Gulf Coast. So, I'm reliant on information that I get from my contacts in the oil field. I'm reliant on information that I get from people that have made themselves known to me from the Gulf Coast. I'm extremely careful about information I use. In fact, I will never use information that I only get from a single source.
That's it, yeah.
So, I always make sure that if I'm incorporating anything into my research, I'm getting it from at least dual source. And, of course, the beauty of the Internet and the speed with which people are putting stuff up, once I've got a piece of information, I can normally do a search, and within a few hours I can find other input that corroborates that. So, it's really, really important that we do sort of, pool our resources, if you like, and share what we know about what's going on.
While we're off air, Anthony, you've got something to relay. Fire away.
Yeah, we were talking earlier on about priming populations and conditioning them to have certain views and behaviour patterns and whatever, but if you look at all the topics which we've discussed so far, swine flu, the volcano, those from Iceland, the BP oil spill, Al-Qaeda, the war on terrorism, all these major stories which you see pushed heavily by the mainstream media are all of a global nature. And the solutions to these problems all have, individual countries looking to global institutions, the World Health Organization, NATO, the UN. So it's like people are being introduced to seeing things on a more global scale and to prime them and get them ready for a movement toward more, world government and centralisation of power. Absolutely.
Ian, what do you think about that?
I absolutely concur. I mean, there's no question. And I think what we have to do is we have to look to be returning, obviously, to local communities. I mean, we've actually got to encourage people to start looking at the resources they have available locally. And but at the same time, we've also got to protect those emerging local communities from an increasingly pernicious global agenda. So, we've definitely got our hands full.
That's it. While we're on the subject of more communal aspects, listeners of the show will have heard us numerous times. We dedicated a whole show to it on one occasion as well. The Freeman Eco Village. Now, if you want to listen to that show, just log on to northeasttruth.com and click on N.E.T. Live Radio. That'll take you to the archive with that show with Mirthful Merriweather and commonly known as Dom. Just a message to put out from those guys. On Saturday, there's a barn building event at the new Eco Village, the Freeman Eco Village down in East London. The Facebook group, Freeman Eco Village, has all the details there. If you're not on Facebook or you can't access that group, you can find Dom pretty much permanently glued to Skype via his phone. His username is dominic.of.the.lohan.family. So if you want to get in touch and get some directions, if you can't access Facebook, get in touch with them on Skype, or send an email to freemaneecovillage@hotmail.com. If anyone actually wants to join and spend a lot of time down there and maybe build a cob hut or some other form of accommodation, go down there, go and meet the guys. You can stay and just help out for a few days. Stay as long as you like. There are people coming and going, and judging by the video that I've just noticed that was filmed on Sunday, there's a lot of activity going on there now. So that's just a message for those guys out there. So the Facebook group where the most information is Freeman Eco Village. You've both got some events coming up, which we're going to talk about. And before we get into what's going on with Ian in the Northeast, Anthony, have you got something coming up in Liverpool soon?
Yeah, I'm giving a talk on Thursday in Liverpool, down there at the Beyond Knowledge group. And
what's that about?
I've giving my talk on psychological operations and social conditioning, just quoting from all their declassified documents and trying to put it together in a nice formal reference way. So
yeah, can recommend that when you did that presentation for us in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Definitely something that it really hits home with the quotes, especially from the people like Edward Bernays and some of the other quotes in the books that you bring with you. So that's a good one. Is there a website for the Beyond Knowledge? Do you know?
I think if people look, if they search for Beyond Knowledge Liverpool, they can find that group's website and find all the details there.
Excellent. Okay. Ian, before we find out what's going on with you, I've just got to. I'd definitely recommend a convention going on in Bath on the weekend of the 28th, which is the ARC convention, arcconvention.org. Check that one out. It's Karen Sawyer's second event. That's the event where Michael Tessarian gave a really good talk and a presentation which we've played a little bit of on the radio a few weeks ago. So check that out, folks. That's only it's next week, so if anyone's free and you're looking for somewhere to go, check that one out. And Ian, you're up in the Northeast. All the details aren't fully organised yet, but what can you tell us about your events coming up and your trip?
What I can tell you is it's going to be in Middlesbrough.
Right.
And it will be on the very auspicious date of September the 11th. And I'm basically going to combine a talk. I'm going to discuss what's going on with BP. I'm going to obviously be sharing the information I have there, and of course giving an update because it's a situation that's developing at a phenomenal rate of knots, but not being reported in the press.
Absolutely.
But I'm also going to be giving a presentation that I call "History Cannot Be Permanently Falsified."
Right. Okay.
And I will be, which is actually a quote from that Rudolf Steiner used, but it's a quote from a guy called Jacob Ruppti, who was a Swiss academic who was doing some research into the real machinations behind the First World War. So, here we are almost 100 years on. And whereas 100 years ago, it was very well accepted that people in academia would have a pretty good insight into the deep political machinations. But the rule of the game was that it was kept within academia and not generally shared. And that was even true up until, a few years ago with sort of Carroll Quigley and, of course, ultimately his publication of Tragedy and Hope. But today, we are in a very different situation. I mean, as we're having this discussion, the information doesn't need to be kept within academia. We are not members of any particular club or fraternity, so we haven't taken any oath to keep silent on these issues. And what we're trying to do is obviously encourage each and every individual to take responsibility for their sovereign self. And come to the realizations of what's occurring in the deep political agenda for themselves.
Yeah, very true. Good words.
So that's September the 11th, and obviously I will ask you guys to help post that information when we do know the actual venue, which we'll know within the next few days. But it's my first presentation in the northeast of England. I mean, I've been up to the northwest, probably about a dozen times, but I've never actually been invited before to the northeast. So I'm really looking forward to coming to Middlesbrough.
Cool.
Yeah,
hope it goes well.
We'll get on that one.
Thanks.
No problem at all. And John, the guy that's organising that one, we'll be in touch with him, and we'll try and help promote that one and get ourselves down there as well.
Excellent.
Anthony,
metaknowledge.co.uk.
Yeah, I made a mistake, sorry. It's not Beyond Knowledge, it's Meta Knowledge in Liverpool.
Metaknowledge.co.uk, information on that one. We talked about briefly something that we'll cover before the end of the show. We've got a little bit of leeway to run over, so we're not highly restricted, I don't believe. Certain parts of these islands, places like Glasgow, you mentioned South Wales, and especially the northeast of England,